Hello and welcome to the program Discuss. Today we are Nigerian pressing Nigerian issues. Today we turn our attention to one of Nigerian present concerns, which is around balancing foreign direct investment and national interest. Foreign direct investment has long been regarded as a critical driver of economic growth in emerging markets. For Nigeria, Africa's largest economy and most populous nation, attracting and regulating foreign direct investment is not just an economic priority, it is a matter of national interest. Thank you for joining us this edition of Discourse as we set to x-ray this major talking point. But before we dive in straight into the conversation and me introducing the guest who is joining us virtually, let me bring you a quick background on Nigeria's foreign direct investment. Nigeria's relationship with the foreign direct investment dates back to colonial period when multinational companies dominated sectors like agriculture and mining. In the post-independence era, oil exploration and production became the mainstay of the foreign direct investment inflow, with the international oil companies such as Shell, ExxonMobil and Total playing a central role in shaping Nigeria's economic landscape. By the early 2000s, reforms in the banking and telecommunication and also energy sectors created new opportunities for foreign investors. The liberalization of the telecom industry, for example, saw the likes of telecom providers and other global players, which transformed communications and created millions of jobs. However, Nigeria's foreign direct investment inflow has been inconsistent as to political instability, weak infrastructure, policy reversal, corruption, and security challenges have slowed down investment. Despite these setbacks, Nigeria remains one of the Africa's top foreign direct investment destinations, with key investment in oil and gas, agriculture, fintech, and manufacturing. So looking at this now, we'll be extracting this major talking point and be looking at how, despite having these sectors where is open to having a whole lot of foreign direct investment, we are still, struggling, despite the fact is leading African nations and most populous black African nation, of course. Despite having all of these numbers and having all of these sectors that can yield a whole lot of benefit and increase in terms of foreign direct investment into the country's economy and its GDP, we are still having inconsistency. We are going to be finding out why that is happening today and how to move past it. So we'll be looking at it from those angles. Also, we'll look at challenges like I mentioned, and also how we can tackle all of these concerns, security issues and climate change. Climate change also, is it like a global thing, or is it a state that would, handle it? When I mean global now, the question is the United Nations and every other international bodies now, how well are they managing and also sanitizing states and countries respectively and regions respectively on how to navigate and manage all of these situations when at any point it arises? So we are facing that already, but all of these concerns need to be addressed. So we are going to be looking at those angles, and then we'll be doing that as the show unfolds. We'll be going on a quick break, and then when we return back, I'll be introducing my guest who would help us extract this major talking point. Stay with us.
Nigeria at 65, a nation rich in culture, heritage, and resilience. From the banks of the River Niger to the hills of Jos, from the bustling streets of Lagos to the peaceful plains of Sokoto, Nigeria stands tall, united by hope, straightened by diversity. 65 years, the green and white flag rises high, a symbol of freedom, a promise of self-determination, a call to greatness.
Through trials and triumphs, challenges and changes, Nigeria remains unbroken. Her people, bold, brilliant, and brave, continue to rise, innovating, creating, and shaping the future. The journey has been perfect, but it has been powerful.
As we mark 65 years of independence, we remember the past, celebrate the present, and look forward to the future with hope. Together, we are stronger and united. Happy Independence, Nigeria! This message is brought to you by Global Television.
If you're just joining, this is Discourse. We're set to get into the conversation. While we await our guests to join virtually, let me bring you up to speed with some details about foreign direct investment and how to balance it. Yes, balancing foreign direct investment and also interest. You remember we just celebrated our 65th annual anniversary. That's talking about Nigeria's independence. So we're looking further on how to balance foreign direct investment and national assets based on the fact that lots of good messages came around Nigerians and the federal government, making sure that the government, the country, and the economy grows together. This is not just the job of the government. Private sectors also need to foster and come together, because the government already has created an avenue for the economy and the GDP of the nation to grow. So at the heart of this debate lies the delicate balance. How can Nigeria maximize the benefit of foreign direct investment while safeguarding its national interest? Foreign direct investment brings numerous advantages. It starts with cash inflows that support industrial growth and infrastructural development, technology transfer and marginal expertise that improves productivity, job creation, and expand access to international markets. But yet, challenges persist Critics argue that over-dependence on foreign direct investment, especially in oil and gas, have weakened Nigerians' bargaining power. Profit restriction by a multinational corporation often drains the economy, while regulatory loopholes sometimes lead to exploitation of local resources and limited community development impact. The national interest dimension therefore requires that one, policy stability. Investors thrive in a predictable business environment, while Nigeria must ensure that its policy serves long-term development goals. And then local content laws, ensuring Nigerians participants are meaningful in industries dominated by foreign players, as seen in the oil and gas sector. Local Content Act as well. Looking at it from another concerning talking point now is around security and governance, creating an environment where the investments are safe and returns benefit both investors and host communities. Diversification, reducing dependency on oil and challenging foreign direct investment into agriculture, renewable energy, manufacturing, and also digital economy. These are the major sectors now that individuals are looking at for direct foreign investment to come into agriculture, renewable energy, manufacturing, and also digital technology. Now, these are the major factors. But before we can have all of these, one, starting from agriculture, the incidents around the concern around banditry, kidnapping, and insurgency in our rural communities, that's talking about insecurity challenges now, needs to be taken care of the moment that is handled. Now, all of those individuals and that are internally displaced, as those in the IDP camps, will return back to their homes, because originally these individuals that have been internally displaced now are literally all farmers, and if you get to ask them and converse with them on a one-on-one basis, they would always tell you, we wish we can go back to farm. Then now, Nigeria as a consuming country, the moment we continue with our own production, automatically we have a market for ourselves already in terms of agriculture, and also in terms of exporting these farm products now into the international market. This on its own hand would also attract foreign direct investment on one note. Then talking about renewable energy, it can also work hand in hand with agriculture, based on the fact that we have what is called green light planting and farming as well. So all of these angles, energy, manufacturing, and digital technology, is something that can be explored at this point in time. Okay, let's talk about digital technology. We've seen a whole lot of digital currencies coming up that a whole lot of individuals have been venturing into Bitcoin and other crypto currencies. Those are digital technology that helps also facilitate, but regulation now is another concern in this part of the world, and policies so that would shape how these currencies will be traded within the continent of Africa and Nigeria as well. So we'll be having these conversations with our guests to join us. We'll be looking at how we can diversify all of these sectors and also move further. But one thing still remains, that the Nigerians' future in foreign direct investment rests on its ability to strike a strategic balance between global capital and experts, while fiercely protecting its sovereignty and national interests with clear policies, political will, and also improving governance. Foreign direct investment can serve as a powerful engine for sustainable growth, lifting millions out of poverty and positioning Nigeria as a true investment hub in Africa. So if there is a role, like I rightly mentioned earlier, despite the fact we're still in the spirit of celebration of the independence, there is a role that everybody has to play. I have a role to play, the president has a role to play, those in the Senate, those in the legislature, those in the judiciary, those in their offices, even the market woman. Everybody has one or two roles to play to make sure that Nigeria gets the accolades and becomes the investment hub in Africa as it's meant to be, based on the fact that this is the most populous black nation in the world, and Nigerians are very resilient. We'll go on another quick break, and then when we return back, hopefully our guest is on the other end of the line so we get into this conversation properly. Yes, many thanks for staying with us. If you're just joining, this is Discuss. Now we are about to get right into the conversation. I have a friend and a brother, a colleague as well here in the studio with me, who is a political and also an environmental correspondent in the person of Obong Usora. Good afternoon and thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Eddie, for having me on your program.
Yes, so foreign direct investments. Majorly, Nigeria was known as a giant of Africa based on its exportation of grains, from back in the day before a whole lot of diversion went into oil and gas, and then it's looking as if the agricultural sector is left for a poor man, but there is just untapped gold mine in the agricultural sector that has not been tapped in. Looking at foreign direct investments now, what major role can the government and what policy can be created by the government to help, attract more foreign direct investment to the agricultural sector? Though we can also look at other sectors, but let's just, look at the agricultural sector before we start talking about digital technology, renewable energy, manufacturing, because there's a whole lot happening in those other sectors as well.
Right, so like you mentioned, truly in the 1960s, Nigeria at that time was running a regional government where we had three basic regions. We had the north as a region, we had the eastern region that comprised of the southeast and the south-south, then we had the western region. And each of this region was exporting, right? And there was a lot of investment coming in. So in the eastern region, we had the oil palm, where the oil was being exported to a lot of places. Then in the western region, right, we had cocoa. So we go to places like Ibadan, or you're saying, there's a cocoa house. The first story building that was ever built in West Africa was built in Ibadan because there was so much money, right, from that investment. Then you go to the north, we had the Granite Pyramid. So there was a lot that agriculture was bringing in. In fact, agriculture was a mainstay of the economy. At the time, between 1960 and 1980, 80% of Nigeria's economy was run by agriculture. That was how serious it was. But with this coming of the oil exploration in Olobori in Bayelsa State, money came. In fact, there are rumors that a former military ruler at the point said Nigeria's problem was how to spend money, because there was a lot of money. The problem was even what do you do with all of this money? So Nigeria got involved with ECOWAS, got involved with playing a big brother's role, and we forgot about the basics of economy, because you can't just keep spending money. And the oil sector, as good as oil is, the oil sector is limited in the people it can employ, and the kind of oil the sector we're now doing a service-based economy, which is very we're only providing the services. We're not really making money, because all of the expatriates in the oil sector. Let's even look at agriculture. Till today, agriculture takes 60% of Nigerians. Oil sector takes just about 3% of Nigeria. So we're focusing on the minors and the majors wrong. So like you said, the former government, President Muhammadu Buhari, there was a lot of talk about people going back to agriculture. But at this point, it's not just about going back to agriculture, because we've moved past that era where my grandmother would go to the farm with her hoes and all of that. The era that we are now is an era that agriculture is mechanized. And we see in the US, for instance, just 5% of their population is into agriculture. You can check that, anybody, 5%, but they feed the remaining 95%. And in Nigeria, we have about 60% into agriculture, and we cannot even feed ourselves. So because of the way we are doing agriculture, we have gone past that. We have to look into mechanized farming. We have to be serious and deliberate investment. Look at all of the people that have money in Nigeria, and the first 5 persons in Nigeria that have money: Aligo Dangote, you mentioned Oterola, Elumelu, and the rest of the people that comes into mind, Rabiu, and all of that. None of them is really into agricultural sector, service-based, banks and all of that, refinery, cement. So who is looking at agriculture? And this is the gold mine, right? So even the investors in Nigeria are not really looking at investing in agriculture. You know, Dangote just finished building the biggest refinery in West Africa. It's still because it's, oil brings immediate profits. Yes. But agriculture, you have to be very tender. You have to be very consistent. You have to take details to follow up the plans and all that. So I think government should encourage mechanized farming, and maybe try to skew these our politicians and skew our millionaires or billionaires into investing in. Just think of if we have something like Dangote farms.
We used to have this Obasanjo farm in Ogun.
It's still there.
It's still there. Now it has been, before he got, I don't know if he gifted it to the states or he's still in charge. We've seen lots of produce coming out from that farm, and that farm has been there for the longest of time, which created lots of jobs. But how can all of that not be replicated now in other states where we could have a lot? And again, looking at the security concerns now, most of the individuals in the IDP camps, if you get to interact with them on a one-on-one basis, those are all farmers. Those are all farmers, and the insurgency has impacted them negatively in terms of them going back to do what puts food on their table, and also that which feeds the nation. So how what can the government do swiftly to, mitigate all of these concerns?
All right, so a few things that just came to my mind. Number one, create agricultural pathways. So the same way we talked about having grazing reserves, let's have agricultural reserves. I see what Niger State government did with Lagos, giving Lagos some hectares of land. So if every state, for instance, dedicates 20% of its land mass to farming, that's massive. That's something that can go a long way. So let's have those agricultural corridors, first as a policy of government. That this, because there's a lot of quick, people tend to run into sectors that will give them quick money, which is one, real estate sector.
Yes.
So a lot of real estate are taking over their lands now. So government also has to be deliberate in its approach, because for instance, if I'm a real estate agent now, I go online, post a property, I sell one property, I get 20%, 10%, and that percent may be in millions of naira.
Yes.
But if you are farming, it will take more time. Yeah, right. So government should be deliberate in making sure it safeguards, because if we go this way that we are going, in no time we may not even have farmlands again. So deliberate government policy. Deliberate government policy. Make sure that whatever you have farming reserve, whatever name, farming corridor, it should be all over the state. Let's start from there. Then when we have this land, we'll now make a deliberate government policy that people that are in charge, ministers of agriculture, commissioners of agriculture, must give reports monthly. So if we take it, another problem, even as we are doing 65 years of independence, somebody talked about it and said, what is really the vision of Nigeria? You think a lot before you can answer
that question.
I remember when Biadua was president, they used to talk 7-point agenda. And it was new, and people were like, okay, at least this person is coming and he says this is what he can deliver. And then, he actually started before, he felt ill and all of that. So looking at that, that's a very, very big question. Aside, increasing the GDP and all of that, what is the mission? Because it seems as if we are all, most of the times, we get to, celebrate the independence, and then it looked as if the same thing we complained about the previous year is the same thing that people are still retreating to complain about in the present time. We went around and then we got some reactions from Nigerians, and they're like, the same thing that we said last year is the same thing we are still saying today. The same thing we said since I was even born. So because we talked about the issue of light, we've not been able to solve it. We talk about food security, we've not been able to solve it. Transportation, we've not been able to solve it. Yes, states like Lagos have made significant progress, but Lagos is just a part of Nigeria.
Yes.
So you go to places like the southeast, the southwest, the north central. There are states that you before you get to, even in my place at Kwagum, there are local governments. I've been to a place that I asked myself, is this place part of Kwagum? No light, no electricity, right? And these are the farmers these are the people that do the farming. Right? So at the end of the day, before they can even transport their goods to the market, they don't have access to manure, they don't have access to extension officers. The government have people who are extension officers that are paid to go to the villages to give technical support to farmers. Most of those extension officers don't even go anywhere. They sit home, write people's name, fabricate names. So it has to be a
talking about that, there's something about the farmers, and most of the time a lot of farmers that I've interacted with over a couple of months ago have actually complained about the fact that they are farmers and then they are corporate farmers. That means whatever it is that is coming from the government doesn't get directly to the farmers, based on the fact that there is a chain. Now, looking at the Bank of Agriculture now, how do you think they can be able to play that role in terms of providing loans and resources for all of these farmers, mostly those that have had a backlog of crisis, talking about insecurity now? How do the governments partner with the Bank of Agriculture to know the actual farmers and then eradicate those that are like the corporate farmers out of the picture, and then solve this concern so as people would be able to get those information, not just information now, the money to use and buy equipment, or Will it be better if they just buy the equipment and hand over to these people? Because some persons will take these loans now and go and do something else.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen a lot of persons. I remember in 2020 there was this scheme by You Win by former President Goodluck Jonathan, right? You Win was where you state your proposal, what you want to do, and some grants will be given. Some people got grants to go into agriculture. They went to use it to marry. They went to use it to buy cars. So that's actually something that brings a lot of concern, right? Yeah, but I think the Bank of Agriculture, one, they also will talk about their own limitations. Maybe funding is enough. But away from that, with the little funding they have, we have to be able to eradicate the destiny killer of Nigeria, which is corruption.
Yes.
A lot of corruption, like you mentioned, when the federal government gives fertilizers, gives this training, gives support, grants comes, maybe your United Nations grant, because there's a lot of grants that goes into farming. The whole world knows that Nigeria needs farming, and there's a lot of support that goes there, right? So, but sometimes people just corner it, sometimes it doesn't get to the right people. I've even been in a situation where some people call me and say, let me just put your name, come and say you're a farmer and all of that. Because these are essential officers, they call it the armchair workers. They don't want to go on the field, go under the sun to investigate, to know, does this man who has written that he has 10 hectares of land in Nasarawa in Kebbi, does he really have this land? Right? There is no proper investigation. So it brings all of those issues. So corruption, the Bank of Industry must be deliberate in sieving through to get to know the real farmers. And there's also a problem of ignorance and illiteracy, right? Most of the people who are in the rural communities who do these farmers may not even know how to speak English, you know, and so there's some sort of disconnect between. So we need to be able to bridge that literacy gap. In fact, going to the next generation, no Nigerian child should be without education.
True.
All right. So I think that's very important, and those are some of the things I can.
Actually, that's actually very true, because the future, the kids are the future, like they say. Currently, if those individuals now can't get education, that means the future, the nation itself generally gets to crumble. But there's also other concerns, other sectors that can attract foreign direct investments. Let's look at digital technology. We could look at cryptocurrencies now. Bitcoin, a couple of years ago there was this issue with Binance and the federal government and all of that based on money laundering and terrorism funding, which conversations I think are almost done around those angles. But looking at it now, the market is emerging. The digital currency market is emerging on a very, very high note, and also is an avenue for foreign direct investment. So, looking at those angles now, what policies now do you think that Nigeria needs to put in place in terms of having an avenue where these sectors, where these currencies will be traded? Because whether we like it or yes, that is $1 billion business hub that, if is being properly looked into, and if it's being properly exploited, then Nigerians would even be waiting on the government to create jobs now. At this point, people will be trading on those platforms, but now policies now need to be put in place. How does the government step in to make sure that an avenue for foreign direct investment can come into this sector?
All right, so digital technology is taking over the world, and the problem we have in Nigeria is that digital technology is largely decentralized. It's not centralized. So it's very difficult to monitor, and that's why the issues about money laundering and terrorism financing can be debated, because when money gets into some of these platforms, even the platform itself cannot even trace where the money is going. And it was made that way with the intention of the people who are in that space, so that it becomes a third, it rivals the banks, right? Because the volume of work they do, they did it in a way that it's difficult to track. It's just like the Web3, where the footprints are very difficult to track than centralized system, right? So government regulating, I think one of the ways government will regulate is to get into that market.
Yes.
And maybe when we have an exchange, if we have an exchange that before you can convert money to use, we could have whatever money you have in those digital platforms. And because I'm also very concerned about safety, if I don't want you to know how much I have as a government, why should you know? Right? But with the normal banks, it's not like that. The government has the records, but so you can have all of the money you have is there, that's for you. But if you want to use the money where we are, like that country, if you want to use the money in our country, if you want to use the money for business around, you must be able to pass through a decentralized system. So I will encourage that the government of Nigeria should create an exchange platform that is solid, because I remember the last time we had the Naira something, e-Naira, it came online after 3 days.
The website
crashed. So not on the exchange platform that is solid. So whether it's Binance, whether it's whatever, people can use it to convert money. So during that conversion, if the government can even charge just 1 Naira per conversion, we make a lot of money at the end of the day. So instead of antagonizing the technology, instead of fighting the people, let's find a way to make something out of it.
Okay. Well, obviously, fighting the people is actually not going to solve any problem in terms of decentralizing, the digital market, and the government getting fully involved in that sector as well is actually going to give more confidence to investors to come and invest. And again, let me ask you quickly, do you think crude and oil and gas is a blessing to Nigeria, or it's a cause? Because before now, agriculture has been the bedrock of Nigerian economy. Agriculture took Nigeria to the level where she is now as a nation. So looking at it now, how and like from the stats that you gave earlier on, 60% of the nation is focused on agriculture, just 3%. Now, why is this 3% making the 60% look as if the 60% is not sufficient for a country as big as Nigeria?
Yeah, because the agriculture we practice in Nigeria does not really give us the edge to compete in the global market. Based on volume. So let's say our cocoa volume, if it's $20 million, it does not feed the global chocolate market. It does not feed the global sugar and whatever food industry. So we are limited because of the level that we are. So is oil a blessing? I say oil is a blessing because with the coming of oil, Nigeria became what we are. Because we took the place of, we could sponsor, we could support liberation in places like Liberia, because we had the funds to do it. To support somebody or support another country is not easy. So we could pump a lot of money there. So oil actually brought prosperity to Nigeria, right? And it's just unfortunate that we've had a lot of corruption over the years, and we've always had corruption. Look at all of the other countries that have oil, and look at what they are going through. Countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, they are doing amazingly well. That's the standard we are supposed to be.
And we discovered oil way before this individual, Saudi Arabia and the rest of them.
So, have to be exploited. There is no Nigerian exploration company at the moment. I'm not against Mobil, I'm not against Shell, I'm not against Chevron or whatever, but for the many years there's been no serious investment in that industry that is owned by Nigeria. Saudi Arabia have Aramco. It is a nationally owned and listed oil company. So oil is not a cost. It's just that the people have misused the opportunity. Just think of what Nigeria would have been if we invested the money we were supposed. We are still talking about generating 5,000 megawatts of electricity today. Those are not conversations we should be having, right? So I think it's unfortunate that our leaders have failed us at a point.
Do you think we don't have the political will to turn things around?
I think selfishness and greed has been the hallmark. So everybody wants to be flash, and I think we also blame the citizens at some point. Because if my uncle is a councillor and he comes back and does not have a car, We are the ones that will say, uncle, you're a councillor, 5 years. No. So it's like the people encourage politicians to steal, because at the moment you see a politician, people expect politicians should give them money, should drop something. So where will this money come from?
Yeah, actually.
So it has to, for me, it's an holistic problem and it's a people's problem.
Okay. Well, look, the time is no longer actually our friend, and this is how we're wrapping to this edition of Discourse. But we're hoping that the politicians will actually have the political will, as they've always mentioned and promised in their manifesto, to put Nigerians and the country first in terms of policies, and also, you know, safeguarding the rural and urban communities. I want to say a very big thank you to Ubongo Soro for taking our time to join us on Discourse today. Yes, and this is how much time will permit us to take on today's edition of Discourse. My name is Samuel Odi. I'll see you as we discuss further. Bye for now.